Hello students, welcome to class. Today I am going to cover a lesson from your text Beehive. The name of the lesson is The Sound of Music. The lesson The Sound of Music deals with two musicians. Number one, Evelyn Glennie, a percussionist, and number two, Ustad Bismillah Khan, a Sahnai player. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone write about two musicians or deal with two musicians when there are so many musicians, and that too quite renowned ones around the world? The answer is very simple, because these two musicians had extraordinary stories. They themselves are very extraordinary individuals, and it's really important to know about them, because they brought music to the level of international stage, and they brought a new life to the musical instruments that they are dealing with. So today I'll be talking about the commendable work of these two musicians and about their life. Number one is Evelyn Glennie. Who is Evelyn Glennie? Evelyn Glennie is a percussionist. Evelyn Glennie is deaf. She cannot hear. Now you might be confused here. How can a deaf person be, a musician? Yeah, how can a deaf person be a musician? So when Evelyn was not, as we know, was born deaf, but she gradually became, deaf and was totally, unable to hear anything. And but she did not give up. One day she heard a girl playing a xylophone, and she decided that she wanted to play that instrument. But all the teachers of a school discouraged her, because they cannot imagine how can a girl who cannot hear music, play music. But there was a godfather, and he was Ron Forbes, who never discouraged her, and he could see the potential of this little girl. And so he told her one thing, that you cannot hear, it's okay, so you try to sense music through some other way. You can sense music through some other way. Now how can one do that? And the journey of little Evelyn Glennie began from there. She started sensing music through a different way. And now I was talking about the word hear all the time. So she started listening to music. We don't hear music, we listen to music. It is kind of a emotional feeling and touch that we have in our lives. Music brings that to us. And remember, music is so universal. You may not understand the wording sometimes, but you really get into the flow of the music. Like many of you, you love Korean music. You don't understand the language, but you love it because there is something that draws you towards it. But Evelyn Glennie, her story is so amazing, is that she started playing with music in a different way. She started to sense the vibration of music. She can sense it through her fingers, to her legs, and she also could sense it through her hair. And how is it possible? There's one saying, like, if God takes away something from you, He gives you something more in return. And that's what happened with Evelyn Glennie. She was gifted with something extraordinary, superpower, you can say, because she was deaf. If you look at our lives, we have, two beautiful hands, normal, two eyes, and we are gifted with all the things. Yeah, we are gifted with two beautiful hands. In fact, we are gifted properly with all the five senses. And it's up to us how we use it. But we are not gifted by, any superpower by God, because God wants us to use our senses, efficiently. But for Evelyn Glennie, no doubt she's gifted, and she's extraordinary. But she had proved it with her hard work too. And when I share a very beautiful video with you, how she explains about listening. Listening is one of the skills that is seldom used by us. Though we can hear a lot of things, we like to hear things. We do not like to listen to things. Listening is such a beautiful skill, and listening can enhance the personality of a person. Listening can really enhance many other skills that are linked up, all the senses. So I think Evelyn Glennie had understood that the power of listening, and she began her journey with music, tremendous journey. It is quite appreciating, and she brought percussion to the main stage, to the front stage, because basically percussion is not given that kind of a stage importance that when before Evelyn Glennie. But after that, percussion has become, after her, she introduced percussion to the front stage. She brought a new beginning to this group of instruments. Now, if you ask me what is percussion, or what kind of instruments are called percussions, the drums, you have seen the drum set, then the xylophone and the similar instruments like the drums are called the percussions. So Evelyn Glennie, got herself enrolled in the great Royal Academy of Music in London. Initially, she was not allowed there because she was deaf, but she scored the highest marks in history ever scored by any students in the institution, and there she had entered the Academy of Music through her strong willpower, her hard work, and she convinced that she can lead a normal life. Initially, people think that people who are deaf or blind, they should go to a deaf school for the deaf, and that was what was instructed or advised to her parents. But Evelyn Glennie proved that she can lead a normal life, be with the normal people. There is no difference, and it was not only remarkable, but she did a great achievement and proved and been an motivator. She has inspired many people like her, and she is an inspiration to all of us. So she had talked about how we can listen to music. She is telling to the world that listening, use your listening skill, and that is the most important thing she had given. And when you read the lesson, you will know that this girl has come a long way. She could not only speak English, and she can speak even other languages, though she is deaf. And this is what is amazing about her. And if you want to know more about Evelyn, you can always read about her. One very interesting fact about Evelyn Glennie is that she, whenever she performs or she goes for any stage performance, she performs in her bare feet, because she wants to feel the sensation, the resonances of music, the echoes of music through her body, vibration, and she could sense the rhythm, the beats, and everything. And when you see her playing the xylophone, the other drums, you will know that she is an amazing musician. So by now you know why Evelyn Glennie is introduced to you all in class 9 in that lesson. And there is a lot of things that you need to know about this lady. She is a great inspiring person and motivating person who has really given hope to people like people who are born deaf, people who are not gifted with all the 5 senses, can also have a good and beautiful life if they are determined willpower. So it's a great message to all of you through her story, that no matter what, never give up hope and never give up trying. You should try to work hard and also be very focused in what you're doing.
One of the interesting things, of course, is the combination of that raw hand on the instrument and technology, and of course what you said about listening to our young people. Of course, my job is all about listening, and my aim really is to teach the world to listen. That's my only real aim in life. And it sounds quite simple, but actually is quite a big... I'm being told which part of the stick to use, and I'm being told the dynamic. And I'm also being told that the drum is without snares. Snares on, snares off. However, that is simply not enough. And I think what Herbie said, please listen. Listen. We have to listen to ourselves, first of all. If I play, for example, holding the stick, where literally I do not let go of the stick, you'll experience quite a lot of shock coming up through the arm, and you feel really quite, believe it or not, detached from the instrument and from the stick. And I remember when I was 12 years old and I started playing timpani and percussion, and my teacher said, well, how are we going to do this? You know, music is about listening. And I said, yes, I agree with that. So what's the problem? And he said, well, how are you going to hear this? How are you going to hear that? And I said, well, how do you hear it? He said, well, I think I hear it through here. And I said, well, I think I do too, but I also hear it through my hands, through my arms, my cheekbones, my scalp, my tummy, my chest, my legs, and so on. And so we began our lessons every single time tuning drums, in particular the kettle drums or timpani, to such a narrow pitch interval. Tiny difference can be felt with just the tiniest part of your finger there. And so what we would do is that I would pop my hands on the wall of the music room, and together we would listen to the sounds of the instruments and really try to connect with those sounds far, far more broadly than simply depending on the ear. Because, of course, the ear is, I mean, subject to all sorts of things. The room we happen to be in, the amplification, the quality of the instrument, the type of sticks, you know, of the future of a so-called deaf musician. And I just couldn't quite accept that. And so therefore, I said to them, well, look, if you refuse me through those reasons, as opposed to the ability to perform and to understand and love the art of creating sound, then we have to think very, very hard about the people you do actually accept. And as a result, and once we got over a little hurdle and having to audition twice, they accepted me. And not only that, what had happened was that it changed the whole role of the music institutions throughout the United Kingdom. Under no circumstances were they to refuse any application whatsoever on the basis of whether someone had no arms, no legs. They could still perhaps play a wind instrument if it was supported on a stand. No circumstances at all were used to refuse any entry, and every single entry had to be listened to, experienced, and then based on the musical ability, then that person could either enter or not. And so therefore, this in turn meant that there was an extremely interesting bunch of students who arrived in these various music institutions. And I have to say, many of them now in the professional orchestras throughout the world. The interesting thing about this as well, though, is quite simply that not only were people connected with sound, which is basically all of us, and we well know that music really is our daily medicine. I say music, but actually I mean sound, because, you know, some of the extraordinary things I've experienced as a musician, when you may have a 15-year-old lad who has got the most incredible challenges, who may not be able to control his movements, who may be deaf, who may be blind, etc., etc. Suddenly, if that young lad